everybody's favorite time of the week. It's TPP time, Thursday afternoon, 5 p.m. And guess what? We've managed to get another special program for you guys. It was really challenging, but we did it. We just thought we're going to get a special program. And hard as it is for me, I'm going to try not to talk too much and listen more. I keep getting told that I talk too much, but what can you do? It's when you have great guests and when you get interesting subjects, what can you do? But anyway, look, I'm going to stop talking. Going to bring a special guest who's agreed to do this special program. The man with the money, new contender for number 11. Mitesh, over to you. I'm going to stop talking. I'm already getting a signal. Right, over to you, man.
Thank you, Dil. So I thought today let's look at a subject area where people think, we kind of know it all. It's a topic where you'll be thinking, wow, can I really talk, a lot on this? So before I introduce the topic, just a bit about me. I'm a specialist mortgage broker. I work for a company called Alva Mortgage Broker. We're based in Bracknell. We're a team of 8 advisors, and we look at all areas of finance, which I'll touch on a bit later. You've got my contact number. Our logo's there as well. It's a new logo we've had for a few months. Direct contact number, email address, and a website for you to browse through and have a look in terms of our setup, who we are, what we do. We're definitely looking into that as well. So, what's the topic? It's buy-to-let. We're thinking, why? Why buy-to-let? What is this guy going to talk about? You'll be surprised. When I was preparing this, there's lots and lots to talk about. And I'm pretty sure that you will walk away after the session thinking, that's interesting. I've learned something new today. Or it's something I didn't really know that happened in this area. So, let's have a look in terms of what's to come. All right. So let's start with the basic. So questions that we get asked virtually every single day as a practice. I am a first-time buyer. Can I get a mortgage? So we need to understand what exactly is a first-time buyer compared to what a first-time landlord is. So first-time buyer means that you don't really have any properties that you own. So that means you're not actually even a homeowner. And that's what we classify as a first-time buyer. So we would normally say if you're buying a property to be let out, then we will classify you as a first-time buyer, first-time landlord. It's a bit of a mouthful, but that's basically what we will classify you as a type of client. But you're actually a first-time buyer. The only difference is that you're going to buy the property to let it out. Now, in that scenario, you would have to really understand and think to find out exactly what type of finance you'd really want to get. Why am I saying that? Because sometimes what we find is that first-time buyer that we get as a client is actually quite a clever, smart guy, or a girl, or a woman. Because what they're thinking is they want to add some value to the property, do something up, and then they've got a bargain, and then they would look at renting it out at a higher price in 6 months' time, and we get all sorts of inquiries like that. So you'd have to sort of weigh out your options. If you normally would need an income, criteria will be a bit more stricter, so a bit like how you'd apply for a residential mortgage, would be pretty much similar. Do you have enough money in the background to cover wait periods, things like that? Obviously it's a first purchase, so you can imagine the lender is going to be looking at this a bit differently compared to somebody who's more experienced. But if you fit the criteria, you've got the right level of deposit, then you have options. I wouldn't be too scared of looking at a bridge finance option initially. Why do I say that? Is because with a bridge finance option, you have an option whereby you can exit early. You can exit in 3 months, 6 months, even after a month. So you could turn and say that if I looked at this purchase as a first-time buyer and the price is 150, and that's the price I'm buying the property at, but when I do my works and add an extra 10,000, it might be worth, let's say, 180 because of the way I've done the works, and I know I can get 180 for it because I've done so much research for the last 6 to 12 months. Then you might be tempted thinking, well, I want the lender to look at the higher price and lend on that higher price. Then a bridge finance option might be better for you. Again, I'm not here today to go into the finer details, but it's something to think about and approach myself or any other broker you're working with to explore those options as what will be the right thing for you to do. A normal buy-to-let mortgage, or initially a bridge finance and exiting to a buy-to-let product afterwards. First-time landlord, well, that means that you already have a property you own and you're a homeowner and you're buying your first buy-to-let property. And that's what a first-time landlord is all about. That's why it's there. Why have I got the experienced landlord? Well, the reason why it's there is because in terms of your choice of lenders, the options with different lenders, depending on your setup, personal name, limited company, and so on, you may have more choice of lenders, rates, and so on. So again, then maybe the question to ask here is, well, how would you define what an experienced landlord is? And it's something that I guess, unless you ask the question, you won't really know, because in your mind you might be thinking, maybe that means I own 1, 2, 3 properties in the background, so I'm experienced. No. That's not the definition. Some lenders would say if you've rented a property out, that's post completion, you bought it, a tenant's in there, AST in place, a tenancy agreement, 6 months of rent has been coming to your bank account, a tenancy there for 12 months, hypothetically, let's say. Then after the 6-month period, into month 7, you're an experienced landlord. Suddenly you're thinking, hang on a second, really? Yes. So lenders will have a different definition of what an experienced landlord is. Some lenders will say 12 months. Some lenders will say 9 months. 9 months of letting a property out. 12 months of letting a property out. So that's what you need to sort of really sort of consider. And why am I sort of talking about this subject area? It's purely on the basis that you may have more choice of lenders, and sometimes you're missing out on a good deal. It's probably because of this area. So I just thought it'd be good for you to sort of be aware of the different types of landlords that be classified by the lenders. So what is JBSP? JBSP stands for Joint Borrower Sole Proprietor. Now I'd be surprised to know that exists also within the buy-to-let scenario. So my dad is an experienced landlord. I'm a first-time buyer. I'm living at home with my dad. I want to buy a property, and I want to get an option to go to a lender where I can get very good rates, flexible criteria, and I don't want to treat them as I don't want them to treat me as a first-time buyer, so I'm restricted in terms of what I can get. So what I'll then do is I'll talk to my dad, and I'll say to my dad, come and join me on the mortgage, and then I'll own the property. And that's what it means. Joint borrower, sole proprietor. That does exist in the buy-to-let sector as well, and the residential side. Again, a topic that I'm pretty sure I've covered off before, but a very, very interesting one. A lot of clients are not aware this option exists, but it does. So, first-time landlord, experienced landlord. Oh my God, we've now got a portfolio landlord. What's all this about? So, generally speaking, there's two terminologies we use in our industry: a non-portfolio and a portfolio landlord. And it's all to do with numbers. It's a numbers thing. If you own 3 buy-to-lets, that includes the one you're buying, or if it's just a remortgage, 3 on completion of the transaction, 3, the number 3, very important. Up to 3, then you're a non-portfolio. Anything over 3, you go into this category of a portfolio landlord. So what does that actually mean, in terms of when I'm applying for finance? Well, it means more work for us, because we'll have lenders that'll scrutinize your portfolio potentially. They'll make sure it's not highly geared, no void situation. So you don't you want to sort of try and avoid a situation where you've just got had tenants move out and then you're applying for a mortgage, because obviously that will be all picked up by the lender. So all these things has an impact when you're applying for a mortgage. So the most lenders will have a criteria in the background. I'm not saying that every lender will do a stress test in the background and make sure that there needs to be X amount of borrowing against X amount of value of the property, X amount of mortgage against X amount of rent coming in. So we'll have a set calculation, needs to be this times this times this. No. If somebody tells you that, then they're lying, because that doesn't work with every lender. That's why when I talk on my presentations, I always say that it depends on lender to lender, and it always does, because some lenders won't have the stress test criteria. They'll just have some simple logical scenario that they use, and it doesn't require a formula, a stress test as such in the background. So what I would say is that just be mindful that the properties are tenanted and rents coming in. Personal limited company, a good one. We've had a session recently where we had Arif that came around and had all these numbers and talked about this and talked about that, and whether it's right thing to do, wrong thing to do. All I'm here to say is that you can buy in those structures. And I will also say that, generally speaking, you may find it a bit more challenging if you've got more properties in the background in a personal name, depending on the lender's criteria, because you potentially could pick up a slightly better deal. But in a limited company structure, there might be more choice. There might be more borrowing power. Having said all that, that is not why you would set up a limited company. And I'm sure if you go through the presentations that Ari's done recently over the last few weeks, then you'll be able to find out that you actually do need to speak to a good accountant that advise you whether it's the right thing to do in terms of buying a property in a limited company structure. Does it stop there? No, it doesn't, because there are other setups. There's trust, there's SaaS, and the list is endless. So I'm not going to dwell into all this today. I'm just here to say that if you want to buy to let mortgage, even if the transaction is in a trust, we can find a solution for you. Might not be a solution that may happen, because it depends on the lender's criteria, but there are lenders out there, is what I'm trying to say, that will look at options like that, whether it's a SaaS setup, a trust setup, or any other type of setup. So don't be put off if that's the advice you've been given by an accountant and this is the route you're taking. Then as a broker, we'll respect that, and we should really respect that, and not try and say, why did you do this, because you've now lost 80% of the market. No, if that is the right thing for you to do, that's fine. We will look at options for you. Okay, the process itself, we haven't touched on that. So the deposit side, personal or limited company. Now on the personal side, you might be quite familiar because you've probably bought properties in the personal name in the past, and you've had savings, everything's long hunky-dory, or you've decided, like a lot of clients have done before, look at my residential, I earn a lot of money, let's do a refinance, or go back to my lender, get additional finance, and get a deposit that way, the nice traditional way, or gifted deposit. It's kind of quite normal. When you jump onto the limited company side, it is very complicated. Why? Because you need to take advice from your accountant. You need to understand if you're transferring money from your personal account going to a limited company, what is happening? Are you doing a director's loan? What is it that's happening? Because the lenders would want to know. So just make sure on the limited company side there's more work to be done, and make sure that you speak to the broker, ask the questions of the broker, will guide you and tell you, find this out. Same time, make sure you've got a good accountant. And I can't stress that enough. Make sure you have a good accountant, because sometimes if you get the wrong advice, and we've seen that in the past, then delays the process, it causes problems further down the road. And I'm sure a good accountant will tell you that you face the consequences further down the road. Age of the applicant, over 70s, 80s, I wouldn't be overly concerned. If you really want to have a buy-to-let mortgage at that age, not a problem at all. Not a problem at all. We have lenders that will lend. Age of 70 plus 80, it's fine. We can find a solution. But subject to lender's criteria. But there's options out there. Interest only or repayment? A classic one for a buy to let. I've been told it's normally interest only. You have been told it's right, but if you want a repayment mortgage for a buy to let, it's not a problem. You can have a repayment buy to let mortgage. So, again, if it's in your head that all your friends and family have got a buy to let mortgage interest only, you don't have to have an interest only. If you feel you want to have a repayment mortgage and at the end of the term the property is debt free, if that's your long term strategy, then please apply for a repayment mortgage. It doesn't have to be um, an interest only mortgage. So I just thought it's something important to clarify. Credit status has an impact, definitely does have an impact. So let's make sure, there's a website called checkmyfile.com. Have a look at your credit data. You don't want the odd CCJ here and there for £100 and silly things like I didn't pay a parking fine. You want to avoid all that. Just make sure that your credit file is clean. It's one less hassle, but it's a foundation. 80% of the transaction is really revolving around credit status, especially in the buy-to-let process. Debts in the background. Why is it there? Some lenders don't like it. Some lenders don't like too many unsecured debts in the background. So be mindful of that. Having said that, we see a lot of transactions where we're consolidating unsecured debts by using a buy-to-let mortgage. So don't be scared. We can look at those options as well. Anything up to 75-80% lending, it's fine, can be done. So it's possible. Why is convincing there? Well, especially on the limited company side, I'm sure you probably have done transactions on the personal side, but if you haven't, it's not that strenuous. But on the limited company side, you have to be careful. You need to ensure that it meets the lender's criteria, whether the solicitors on the panel, whether it's going to be dual representation. What is dual representation? Well, what that really means is that you've got one solicitor acting for the lender and for you, or is it going to be separate? Costs, very important. Costing. There's independent legal advice scenarios, directors having to take that, and the cost can mount up. So it's important you do your homework up front, especially if the finances are a bit tight, to understand when you're setting this up. Stamp duty costs. Get the quotes out at the outset. If you need recommendations, we work with good solicitors, we can give you recommendations. But prepare and plan for it before you go and put the offer in. What you don't want to do is put the offer in and then find out, oh my god, this is happening, that's happening. I didn't think about this, didn't think it takes that long. Is the lenders that busy? Unfortunately, they are. So you need to be very, very careful that you plan ahead. So I thought, we've talked about the process, talked about what buy-to-let is all about, talked about landlords and different definitions of type of applicants. We haven't really touched on this. It's a very good area. What is MUFB? So MUFB is multi-unit freehold block. That's what it means. That means basically you've got 5 stories, 4 flats on each stories, 20 flats on one title. As a first-time landlord, if you're thinking, I've got a bargain, I can pick up the whole building, for a good price, somebody selling it, don't be scared. We've got lenders that can do that. So that's what it's all about. HMOs, you're aware of what that is. Sometimes an HMO can be defined as 3 unrelated people on a tenancy agreement. Doesn't mean that you need a license. So be mindful of that. Talk to the broker. The broker will guide you and tell you. And sometimes your local area that you're buying the property, in terms of the council, you'll be able to understand what the criteria is in terms of whether a license is required or not. But from a lender's perspective, there's a slight different definition, and this is where we decide which product we will choose for you, an HMO or not. Sometimes the lender will say, you know what, doesn't matter. Multi-unit freehold block, HMO, standard property, same pricing. You'll be like, really? It's a possibility. Short leases, not something we've always talked about. So, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, if you're buying a property with less than 85 years left on the lease, why 85? Because that's what I'm seeing a lot. Lenders say, on application, if there's 85 years, we'll accept the application. But if during the process, before completion, you're extending the lease, then the lender would still accept your application. So don't be fooled and don't be disheartened thinking because it's a short lease I can't get a mortgage. Because if you decide with the seller and the solicitors in the process are looking to extend the lease, let's say on exchange of contracts, then by all means you can get a mortgage. So what I'm saying is that there are options there. Flying freeholds, not in anything we've discussed. We have lenders that can look at that as well. Don't be put off. If you've got a good property purchase at a good price, and there's a flying freehold, we can look at that. Freehold flats, again, not an area we've talked about. I'm buying something in Newcastle. Well, guess what? In Newcastle, you might find a freehold flat. Yes, we have lenders that look at freehold flats. In the UK, long lease houses, 999, almost a freehold. Yes, we do have lenders that look at that. Not very common, but sometimes you get deals like that. Semi-commercial, again, what is semi-commercial? And what is this whole idea of buying a property, a flat above a shop? Is that not semi-commercial? No, it's not semi-commercial. Why is it not semi-commercial? Because when you look at a property where when you're trying to get a property where there's a shop and a flat above on one title, that's semi-commercial. It's under one title. If you're just buying a flat above a shop, it's not semi-commercial. It's a transaction where you've got a property above a commercial. That's the difference between the two. Hope that makes sense. All that means is that some of the lenders may not have the appetite. So if your shop downstairs or the commercial downstairs is a fast food restaurant, a takeaway, a dry cleaner, for example, you may find sometimes some lenders are put off by that. Having said all that, we do have lenders that can accommodate that. So sometimes you pick up a bargain like that. It's a flat above a commercial and I'm getting a bargain. I'm getting very good rent, which is I want to buy it, and it's a good price. It's fine. We can sometimes do the inquiries with the lenders up front to say this is the location, this is what it is. They look at the street, look at the demand. They might come back to us before the application, tell us whether it's worth buying the property or not. So that's all what buy-to-lets are all about. And I just thought I'll look at a Trustpilot review I found when I was looking through the list of reviews I've had, and I saw this one and I thought it's a nice one to sort of maybe present. And this was a client that actually, this is where where you get these questions: do I go direct to the lender? Do I go use a broker's service? It was funny with this particular transaction that I did. It was that time when lenders, and even now, lenders are basically, pulling rates, within 24 hours, without even providing sometimes 24 hours notice. And this particular client actually, in the morning, had rang the lender and had been told that it's not possible. I spoke to the client literally 3-4 hours later. I did my research same day by 5-6 o'clock. I think same day it was, or within 24 hours, because I know the deal was getting pulled as well. And I managed to do the lending with the same lender. It was very, very funny. And I remember this one. And the client was shocked. And I said, yeah, the problem you have, and this is, I think, probably it's a good area for me to clarify. When you use a broker's service, we have access to certain senior members of staff, managers, that will be able to tell us whether something fits or not, or they may be able to speak to an underwriter and let us know. And if you decide then to go direct to your lender, depending on who you speak to, because you're picking the phone up, you may be told something that might not be right. And unfortunately, these things do happen. So it's always best sometimes to use the services of a broker, especially if it's not a straightforward, scenario. And so just be mindful. I'm not saying that it's wrong to go direct. All I'm saying is that it's just be a bit mindful. It'd be good to maybe bring this up, because then at the back of all this I've had a review, and obviously the client's taken time out to put a lot of information in, because obviously she's realized the importance of using a service of a broker. She didn't know who I was. We had a chat, and it was a new client, and she was shocked at the end, because within 24 hours I'm then saying to the client, no, it's this lender. She goes, no, I've just spoken to this lender. They said no. I said no, I've spoken, I've checked, and I've had times where I've it's funny. I'm not dragging. I'm going on and on, but I remember clearly with this particular client, I had lender on one phone call, on hold, client on the other, and I was literally trying to sort out the deal like that. And that's not a service that you get when you go direct to a lender. So these are some of the things that we can do, depending on your contacts you have, because obviously it was one of those type of cases that required some questions to be answered, and I knew that I had both parties available there, and then questions being asked was a done deal quickly, because obviously the deal was going. So and as you can see, I needed a 90% mortgage. So just to finish off, my details there on the right. What I do, not just helping clients buy their first property or moving house and needing a 90% mortgage. I look at other areas: bridge finance, commercial, development finance, second charge, portfolio lending, helping out different types of landlords, as I've covered off. 80% of my business is all that. Residential, directors, having two types of setups: consultancy, limited company directors, and husband and wife wanting 50% shareholdings here and there, and God knows what. All those transactions are possible. Lenders will look at 2 streams of income, 3 streams of income. Everybody has multiple streams of income. Your tax return will show 3-4 streams of income. It's fine. It can be taken. Personal business protection, and you've got my details on the right. And just in case you're wondering, am I on my own in the business? No, I'm not. There's 8 of us. Not lying, there are 8 of us, and you can see we've got a lovely team, and the MD is the one on the far right. So that's all for me for today, and happy to take questions.
Yeah, hang on, don't run away yet.
Okay.
I've got some questions for you, man.
Okay.
Interesting in terms of great presentation there. I'm going to sneak in with the first question before Surinder this time.
Sure.
Does the number of lenders reduce if you're a first-time buyer and a first-time landlord? Do the lenders reduce?
Good question, because you'd expect, thinking, well, it's a booming market, it's buy-to-let, so everything should be hunky-dory. No, lenders do reduce significantly, which is why I talked about the joint borrower sole proprietor option as well. So it's always best to do your research with a broker, find out, because the options for lenders do drastically reduce. Criteria are much more stricter, so you'd have to then work out which way you'd want to do that. The first one the first one is always the hardest. Once you do the first one, then things get much more easier and better for you.
I'm going to sneak an extra question in before I let Surinder go. So you mentioned joint borrowers, separate
sole proprietor,
right? Does the joint borrower need to be family, or could it be anybody else?
99% of the time it's normally family, but if you got somebody like a close friend that's wanting to do it, then I'm sure if we do the research we might be able to find somebody that'll be happy to do that. But I would say 9 out of 10 times it's normally family.
Okay, and is that for buy-to-let only, or could it be done for residential?
For residential as well.
All right. So Surinder, I'm going to let you have a question now. Otherwise, you're going to stop putting the 50p's in the meter, aren't you?
Oh, it's £50. Please get it right.
Show some respect.
Yeah.
I know we've got inflation, but that's ridiculous.
It's the all notes. A few months left.
Right. What do you say? Is it better to buy in a personal name or a company name?
Very good question. So, as a broker, the right thing to do is to provide options to the client. So I would always say, here's the deal, here's the rate. If you went down the personal route, here's the deal, here's the rate. If you're going to go down a limited company option, and then you decide. But you always, I would say always, get back to your accountant and get advice. If your accountant can't give you the advice, then maybe what that's telling you is that you may need to go and find another accountant that can give you the advice, because they're an expert in this area. Not all accountants, remember, can give you advice in this area.
And if you want to find a new accountant that's an expert in the area, watch one of our programs. No comment. I'm going to sneak another question in before Surinder comes back with something. Let me make it two-parter. What's the general level of deposit, and is there a minimum income required for a buy-to-let?
Okay, so two-part question: deposit and minimum income. So that's a very good question. So a lot of clients think that, they've been told in the past that you need a minimum of 25% as a deposit. That's normally a guideline that most brokers will tell you. If you're buying in an area where the rental demand's very strong, you picked up a good bargain, it meets a client's stress test, you could get away with a 15% deposit. You could really get away. What I have found, however, because of the type of interest rate you attract at 85% lending, which means you're putting a 15% deposit down, sometimes you're getting away with a 20% deposit because it fits the lender's criteria. It might be tight, but it still fits. And I've recently done transactions where the client bought two virtually at the same time, and they didn't realize, obviously, that they needed just 20% to fit the lender's criteria, and just decided to go for it because obviously they had the spare cash, and so they said, "Oh wow, really? I can get a mortgage with 20% deposit," and this was the first-time landlord. They went for it, and they managed to get picked up the two with a 20% deposit. So I would say just be mindful that yes, we would always say 25 as a guideline, but on a case-by-case basis, we would have to work out whether you can get away with a lower deposit. Lower deposit will mean obviously you're attracting a slightly higher rate.
I better let Surinder have a question.
No, I'll let you go and then I'll have my question.
No, you go first.
No, it's no point you sneaking in. I'm letting you in.
Okay. So interesting. You talked about portfolio landlords. So if there's a portfolio landlord, do they have to finance all the properties with the same lender, or can they have different in the same portfolio with limited company? Can they have different lenders for each of the properties?
That's a good one, yeah. So you know what? I've also found sometimes where you're thinking this particular client's case fits with the lender, but we can't place it. Why? Because you've had too many with the same lender. So they'll have a cap then sometimes. So every lender will have a different criteria. So you don't have to have all your portfolio with one lender, and if it means that all your portfolio, depending on the size of the portfolio, fits with that one lender because the underwriting's quicker, the rate's pretty attractive, you think, you know what, they're happy to lend more and more, and they might try and say no limits on how many, but it's more limit on amount of borrowing. So it may work in your favor that way, and you bought suddenly 10 and all 10 are with the same lender. It's fine. It's unusual, but it's fine. It can happen, but most clients would turn and say, research the market, see if anybody else is better out there, it's getting better rates, and no harm in trying. So you have those type of clients. Some clients will say, you know what, I've heard horror stories, if we can go back with the same lender, let's do that. A 1/4% here and there, 1/4% product fees here and there, I don't really mind. Let's stick with the same lender. They know who I am. It's a good point. They know who I am. Underwriting should be quicker. Very true. It will be quicker. They know you're an existing client, and you should get a decision much quicker.
And part B, is it harder to do portfolio mortgages?
It is slightly, depending on how highly geared it is, and the rental income that you're getting compared to the amount of borrowing you've got, and you'd have to look at it on a case-by-case basis. It's slightly more difficult. But then again, some lenders will say, we're very good at portfolio landlords. And I see that as a criteria. We help portfolio landlords. What they're saying is that our criteria for portfolio landlords are a bit more less stringent compared to some of the other lenders you may go to.
I better let Surinder have a question before I run out of 50p's. Surinder.
You don't need to bother with 50p's. I already put 50 pounds. Now, yeah, suppose I'm a first-time landlord.
Yeah.
And I want to buy a buy-to-let property, but I come across an HMO. What are my chances of getting on?
So it's interesting because there's criteria where it's to do with number of bedrooms, whether it's 5, 6, more, 10, 20. So I would say that if you're a first time landlord, then the simple answer is yes. But what I would say to you is that don't be scared that if it's not your traditional 5, 6 bedroom and you're going for a big one with a 10 bed or whatever, it's fine. We can consider options. So that's why I brought the HMO into the presentation. That sometimes you think in your head, I don't need to think that big, but if you're getting a bargain, you want to explore the option. No harm. It probably take us less than half an hour to figure out with the lenders whether you meet the criteria. So it's no harm. And if you don't, you don't, and you just maybe buy something that's less number of bedrooms, for example. But
Okay.
it's an extreme scenario. Why do I say that? Is because lenders will have criteria with an HMO in terms of number of bedrooms. So that's the reason why I mentioned it.
So if say a first time buyer does get a mortgage, is
Yeah.
it are the rates more stringent or favorable?
As for a first time
Yeah.
buyer. It's a good question. So I would say with the number of lenders that are out there, they are very much on par with your normal lenders.
Mhm.
But the criteria is more stringent. That's what I was trying to say. But you're right. Actually, you know what? On the rate side, it's very pretty attractive. They're in line with your normal lenders you'd go to. So yeah, the rates for sure they'll be very reasonable. But the criteria is slightly more stringent, which is why you've got that other option that I touched on, which is a joint borrower sole proprietor.
Right. Next, you mentioned short leases, 85 years is your cutoff period. What if I want to buy a flat and it comes out with a 91-year lease?
Yeah,
That's doable, is it?
it's doable. It's on application. It's doable. It's fine.
But at 80, under 85, it's a no-go.
No,
But
no, no. I'm not saying it's a no go. All I'm saying
oh,
to you is that there'll be a process involved where either you're then reducing the number of lenders which you are. If you're not looking to extend the lease before completion, then for sure you're reducing the number of lenders. But at the same time, just be mindful. A short lease, generally, as far as I'm aware, will have an impact at the point the valuation gets carried out, because the lender, the value will be aware of that. And if you're thinking you're getting a property at X, or you're thinking it's a remortgage and the property is worth this much, because of the short lease, it could be downvalued. Just be mindful of that.
okay.
Surinder,
Then
we did a program with Bernie, very good on short
Short
leases and leases, so on.
no, I just wanted the financing point of it.
Yeah, no, but in terms of the lease, it was very good. So watch that when you
Yeah.
get a
And
chance.
now freehold flats.
Yeah.
Explain to our viewers how does it work?
So all I'm saying there is that, like a traditional flat, you get a leasehold. If it's a freehold flat, and I've seen, and especially Newcastle is one area I know for a fact, and I've had a client with a portfolio of properties, and I kept on looking at his portfolio and I asked him the question, leasehold? He goes, no, that's freehold. The next one, leasehold? No, he goes, freehold. Well, you're kidding. He goes, yeah, it's Newcastle. So that's the reason why I mentioned the word Newcastle. So it's fine. We'll have a limited number of lenders. It'll be within the criteria. Normal standard products you will get, but the lenders just saying we're happy to lend against a freehold.
It raises a lot of questions. If it's a freehold, if it's the upper flat, then you repair the roof. And if it's ground floor flat, you pay the drainage and other costs.
I'm not an expert on those areas.
Yeah.
All I would say
Okay.
is obviously you'll be a
One
management company.
one more on
Yeah.
this one.
Oh, come on, Surinder, you're getting extra. You're getting more than I am. What's going on here?
My final question
Okay.
is the flying freeholds. I've heard of flying freeholds in
Yeah.
Scotland.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of them in
And
England.
that's the Flying Scotsman. It's a train.
No, that runs in England.
That's a train.
Yes, in England.
Oh, dear, oh dear. So, yeah, you can pick one of those up in the UK for sure, because I've done one. Definitely have done one and managed to place it. There are certain criterias. I would say if you have a scenario where it's not a large percentage, under 20 or so, you'll probably find you'll get away with it. But the limited number of lenders, and it is a possibility. So don't be. All I was saying there is don't be scared. This section, the whole section on the presentation on property types, deliberately, because obviously people don't think about those areas. But if you had the scenario like that, then it can be done. I've done one, and it's a possibility. And I placed it with a kind of a normal lender that looks at clients, that are above the age of 70 and so on. So it is a possibility. As I said, the market at the moment is such that it's catering for different types of needs.
So, Mitish, we know a flying Scotsman is a type of train. What's a flying freehold?
So within the flying freehold, when the value goes round there, there'll be a comment made on the valuation report. So maybe there's a 20% ownership up there that you need to be aware of. That's a flying freehold. The lender will take that into consideration and find out whether it's something within the lending appetite, whether they're willing to lend against that property, whether that will cause a problem with taking on the security and having a problem later on when they try and sell it, because there might be complications at the point of sale, which is why it's a transaction that's not done with every lender. But what I would say is, normally with areas like this, always speak to a good solicitor, because they can figure out using, as in looking at the title deeds and the land registry, to find out exactly how it's been set up, so that at the outset, when you're coming with an inquiry like this, the inquiry that I had, I remember the client wasn't 100% sure, and he kept on saying it could be this, it could be that, I don't know whether it's this scenario is in there. I said, look, if you don't know fully, then it's better to do the homework up front, and then appoint the solicitor, or your solicitor you're going to appoint anyway. Let them pay them a bit of money if you have to. Find out everything up front. So in this scenario, we got all the information up front, present it to the lender to make sure it's not a problem. And they came back, checked with the underwriter, and said, look, if it's up to this limit, then that's fine. Anything above that, then could be a problem. But as I said to you, what I'm saying is it's a transaction that can be considered. There are other probably legal areas to be considered, depending on the type of flying freehold you have in terms of the percentage of ownership. But it's good to check up front, just like when you have all these I think we had a program with Bernie about the leases and the ground rent and peppercorn and all that. So it's the same thing. You just have to make sure that you've got your facts right before you try and apply, because the last thing you want is to make an application thinking this lender accepts flying freehold, but they have certain tight criterias, and you don't want to pay for a valuation fee and application fee and lose all that money.
Actually, don't tell Surinder this, but I thought it's a great point. I never thought of that about freehold flats and responsibility for the roof and drains. But don't tell him that, because he'll think he's cleverer than me then. I've got one more question picking up on going big. So MUFB, that's not a football club, is it? Right? Let's clarify that first. So that's not a football club.
Definitely not.
I think you talked about large block of flats.
Yeah.
And you said it's possible to do it as a first-time buyer.
First-time landlord.
First-time landlord.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It is possible. But we've got lenders that have got the appetite. They may have restrictions on the criteria in terms of number of units and all that. But yeah. As I say, it's a market that's booming. So all I'm saying is don't be scared. All you have to do is just inquire. Again, within half an hour, within the hour, we'll be able to tell you whether the appetite stay with the lender. But yeah. So basically, we're looking at situations where it's funny you say that, because I just spoke to one of my colleagues this afternoon, and he's dealing with a transaction where the client's not putting a penny into the deal, because the lender has decided that because the client, and this is a big one, that he's going to, on completion, split the title. So it's going to change to leasehold flats. He's actually basically getting 100% of the borrowing on that basis, because obviously once you convert them to leaseholds, then the value of the property is obviously increases. So the lender has then decided that's fine. If you want a term product straight away, if you're doing this on completion, then we're happy to, in principle, lend you the money. And so
Oh.
that obviously gives you an idea. And I didn't realize that, because obviously traditionally I just thought normally you would do the bridge finance, keep it for a month or so, make the adjustments, and then do the remortgage out, even if it's a bridge to let or whatever. But the lender actually looked at it and said, look, give me some time, let me work it out, let's talk it through, went through hoops, spoke to probably senior managers, talked to the underwriter, had a chat. Within 24 hours, they came back and said, you know what, more than happy. The guy doesn't need to put any money in, buys it, splits it, and on completion, wow, no
Bingo.
no deposit required, and he's getting a term product. Okay, he's getting a term product, slightly more expensive, but he's saving all the monies on the bridge finance route, obviously, because it's costly, no? Only if the bigger the size, bigger the value. We're talking millions, yeah. We're not talking.
Yeah, well, once you've done that, can you come back and do a program on that? Because I think a lot of people would like to learn how to do that one. Right. Before I get my last question in, I'm going to let Surinder have one more. Surinder, any more questions?
No, it's all. I'm leaving it all to you to conclude.
You're leaving it all to me. Right? Everybody heard that, right? So I get to ask the best.
Yeah, I need to see the whale.
What was that? Yeah. Surinder British said that. I didn't come up with that one. That's a good one, mate. Right. So, final question.
Yeah.
I see you've got your blue tie on again. Does that mean you're turning from a Liverpool supporter to a Chelsea supporter?
Oh, no, it's actually a purple one. It's just because we're on Zoom. So that way, you know, I've got an argument there, because it's not technically blue.
It's not technically blue. I think you would. Was it this program or one of the previous ones? You were talking about having the lender there and the borrower there, right? I was thinking, have you thought of using Zoom? But anyway,
Yeah, a purple one, you know. Yeah, it's a
purple one. I'll have to look out for that one. I must need new glasses, I think.
you can't go wrong. You can't be accused. You can't. You know, you'll be everybody's friend.
You either go big or you go purple, right? And go purple. Right. So Mitesh, you know, enough of the colorism, right? So look, thank you very much for doing a really, really interesting program. It's super fascinating. I've never seen that sort of detail.
Yeah, it's interesting because you think buy to let, what's there to know?
Yeah.
It's buy to let, but you
Yeah.
know, a whole hour's program on just buy to let.
No, brilliant. Thank you for taking the time out. Really interesting knowledge. And look, I forgot to tell the viewers, but make sure you got rid of your coloring. You know, if you didn't put your coloring pencils down and get your writing pens out, rewatch it on YouTube and this time take notes. You know. So look, thank you very much. And I think that's all we got time for. Surinder, anything else?
No, that's fine. And thank you very much, Mitesh, for yet another good show. Thank you.
Yeah. So remember, TPP, Thursday afternoons, 5 p.m. TPP time. We'll see you on the next one.